Hi there. Hi, friends. I probably should have done this at the very beginning before I made two videos. Um, but I feel like you should know who's talking to you. Um, I want to be as transparent as possible um, because not everything's helpful and not every source is helpful. So, I do want to tell you a little bit. Um, my name is Katherine. I'm 66 years old. Um, I have two children. Uh, I was divorced early, a single mom for a long, long time. I remarried um, several years ago. Um, I spent most of my career as a psychiatric social worker. Started with very, very disturbed children, emotionally, behaviorally. Um, and then kind of moved to teenagers, also hospitalized, and then kind of residential treatment, and then adults. I've had a lot of hospital experience with adults too. And then I stopped once my kids were kind of grown and through college. I stopped and I went back to school and I got a master's in nursing because I wanted to do some mission work with Doctors Without Borders or Peace Corps, one of those kind of medical things. And I was burned out too, not from the patients, but from just kind of the administrative stuff. So and probably and honestly probably definitely some trauma that I needed to back off and heal. So spent 3 years in Peace Corps Morocco, and that kind of gave me a travel bug, and so did a lot of traveling since then, and have done both nursing and teaching nursing, floor nursing and teaching nursing, and home health nursing. And then recently, I always kept my hand in therapy because I love the therapy. Started online about, 15, 20 years ago, almost since I quit, almost since I went back to school for nursing. But I've retired from nursing. Um, and so I just do this now online. I've had some losses. I had a lot of trauma as a child. And, that was kind of back in the day where there really wasn't, we really didn't understand how the brain worked and how trauma affected the brain, how the brain affected the body, and all that. And then I think, like a lot of people with trauma, I was caught in a situation where what I told myself I knew wasn't logical, but I just had a lot of like really, really negative beliefs about myself. And so I've lost. I don't want to tell really with other people, but I had someone very, very close to me who got involved with a spouse who very much disliked me, and so I've been cut out of that life, and that's been extremely painful. And then I got cancer about a year after that, and it was pretty serious. I was in organ failure before it was actually diagnosed, and chemo saved my life. Saved my life. They bring you this pile of forms to sign, like, oh, this can, cause kidney failure and heart failure and lung failure and da 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 da. And I'm just like, show me where to sign, because if I don't do it, I'm going to die. So I might as well. And then I've just passed my almost 3 years, well, 2.5 years, cancer-free. And that was a real big landmark for the cancer I have. The risk went way, way down. And so I've always kind of dabbled in Eastern medicine. I've always been kind of attracted to that. Part of my trauma had to do with not so much religion, but it kind of got bled over into Christianity. And so, I was sometimes, and I was just very curious too. I mean, I tried like every denomination, so I know a good bit about many, many Christian denominations. I've been to synagogue, I've tried a lot of things. Spent time with Native Americans. But part of that was also, an attraction to some of the Eastern medicine and with Native American too, that they see things more in terms of a circle of our life, not, they don't do this kind of trajectory like we do of cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, straight line, but it's more a spiral, and things come back around, and they come back around to give you an opportunity. So I've always been that way, even as a social worker. Like, I've never looked at symptoms as something to immediately fix. I've always looked at symptoms as a very important communication, a signpost of like, hey, and trauma response as, that was the best you could do as a little kid. That's the best your brain worked. So, it's important, not just to try to get rid of things, but to try to understand where they came from and the purpose they served, because they served a purpose. They didn't come out of nowhere for no reason. And to honor that, to honor things that saved your life, even if it left you, with some real problems. And so a lot of my healing, emotionally and now physically, has been kind of from that perspective. Post-cancer, I got much more involved in kind of alternative medicine and Eastern medicine and those things, because, the chemo and the cancer doctors had done all they could do, and they did a really good job. But I wasn't convinced that that was the best I could have. I wasn't convinced that, I needed to have chronic pain, and I needed to have nerve damage, and I needed to have bone damage, and I needed to not be able to see it. I needed to have no energy and, hot flashes and all that. So, I've really been more intentionally involved in that kind of thing for the past 2.5 years, really studying and really spending a lot of time. And I've just, I've had a lot of healing. And I want to share that. I want to pay that forward. And part of that's really selfish. I don't know if this will ever happen, but I would love to have a community, an online community of people who, are also healing and want to help each other heal and want to help the world heal. The world needs a lot of healing right now. So anyway, that's a bit about who I am. And as far as comments, I think I did have one person that watched a video, which is really cool. I thought maybe nobody would watch it, and nobody may watch anymore. You may be gone forever, but if you do watch and you want to comment, please feel free. I'd love to hear from you. The only thing I would say is be kind, or be respectful. I will always try to be kind and respectful in any responses. And if I'm not, I want to be called out. We all have stuff, but if that happens, I hope not, but if that ever happened, I would want to be called out. And that's all. Just, don't Be kind. Be kind. Okay. Hope you have a great night. Bye bye.